So this is Jan Serak, Wisconsin FACETS CEO, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. Our webinar today is how to conduct friendly and productive IEP meetings. And it's important for all of us to really know practical tips and techniques that can improve IEP meetings, and that's what we're going to cover today. Your presenters today, myself, Jan Serak, CEO and founder of Wisconsin FACETS. I'm the co-director also of Wisconsin's Parent Training and Information Center and of the Region 4 Parent Technical Assistance Center that serves parent centers in the Midwest. I'm one of 3 partners who administer the Wisconsin Special Ed Mediation System, and I also work on the National Center for Systemic Improvement. I serve on the National Cadre Advisory Board, the National Center on Deaf Blindness Family Engagement Work Group, an OSEP Data Center Parent Involvement Project, and the Quality Education Coalition, and also am the parent of a son with autism. And Nissan Bar-Lev is the Director of Special Ed for CESA 7, and is one of 3 partners who administer also, along with me, the Wisconsin Special Ed Mediation System. Nissan serves on the Executive Board of Wisconsin CAS and co-chairs the Special Project Committee. He serves on the Governor's Autism Council, the Children's Long-Term Support Council for the Department of Health Services, and chairs the State Superintendent's Blind and Visual Impairment Education Council. He serves on the SAA assessment team, is a member of Wisconsin RTI PBIS Advisory Council and the National IDEA Partnership Creating Agreement team. He's also a co-author of Special Ed in Plain Language, a resource that many of you are familiar with. So, without further ado, I want to let you know that this presentation was developed by WSEMS with input from parents, districts, and agencies. And the Wisconsin Special Ed Mediation System was founded in 1996 by 3 partners, myself, a parent, and Nissan, and also a mediation partner. And the current mediation partner since 2007 is Nina Meyerding. WSEMS assists in the resolution of special ed disputes through facilitated IEP meetings and mediation. WSEMS has been honored as an exemplary system by the National Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution Special Ed, also known as CADRE, in part because of our unique core principle of maximizing stakeholder involvement on a continuing basis. Our staff on the mediation project includes Jane Burns, the administrator and intake coordinator, and also Nelsonia Ramos, our multicultural outreach coordinator. So this PowerPoint is an example of how parents, teachers, administrators, advocates, and attorneys can work together to welcome, honor, and connect in a collaborative way for the best interest of students in Wisconsin public schools. Through initial surveys, pilot presentations, and a review of the PowerPoint program, and accompanying notes by hundreds of individuals and groups, including WSPE, FACETS, WCAS, each group has given valuable feedback and perspective. And the result is this presentation that brings together the ideas and models a process where parents and districts can work together for the needs of students, just like a friendly and productive IEP meeting. So just to do a quick poll of what your experience has been with your recent IEP meetings, I'm just going to ask you all to put in your comments as to whether your experience has been excellent, good, fair, or poor. So if you want to put in your, okay. Great. Okay, so it looks like 83% of you said you had a good experience, 14% said fair, and 14% said poor. So we'll close that poll now and share it out. Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you, Jen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nissan Bar-Lev. So it is my honor to take the next slide. So the goal of this presentation is to provide feedback from parents and districts who were surveyed about their experiences with IEP meetings. By looking at very practical tips and techniques, as Jen mentioned earlier, it can increase the productivity of an IEP meeting and reduce conflict. This presentation hopes to support both parents and districts in developing strong, productive relationships and effective, forward-looking conversation about the needs of students with disabilities. So the next slide would be an...
I'm going to just take a few minutes to think about and write down, just for your own knowledge, things that you're certain that you already know, what you think you know, and what you want to know about productive IEP meetings. You can type a couple of those things into the chat box if you wanted to. And then I'm going to go right on to the next slide, but at least thinking about things that you want to know. So in approaching the topic of productive IEP meetings, we're going to divide the presentation into 4 areas. The first is going to be people, getting the right people together, not just who the law requires as far as attendance at the IEP meeting, but individuals who can help make a connection between the parent and the district and who have the skills to handle potentially difficult or emotional situations. The second area is going to be process, the preparation in the meeting, and we'll focus on how a thorough preparation for the IEP meeting can help it run more smoothly, and how during a meeting certain techniques can build connection and lead to productive conversations. The third area that we're going to cover is outcome, so the importance of developing a concrete and specific IEP with a clear ongoing communication plan and measurable results. And then the fourth area, process or follow through. And the first 3 stages are going to mean very little if there isn't good, coordinated, effective follow-up after the IEP, of the IEP. And by building strong and trusting relationships in each of the stages, a long-term positive relationship can develop between the parents and the district. So in each of these 4 stages, we're going to give a brief introduction. We'll share comments that were given. You know, as we said, we asked for feedback from both districts and parents about their experiences. So we will be sharing out those comments. And then we'll provide some tips and suggestions that will help create a productive and friendly IEP. In each tip page, you're going to see a little cute little light bulb in the upper right-hand corner. So you'll know that that's one of the tips pages.
So the first area that we're going to focus on is people. So who is involved in the IEP meeting is crucial in building the trust and rapport between parents and district. Are there people with whom the parent has an existing trusting relationship? For example, a teacher who developed a special relationship with a student or who has communicated regularly with a parent. Principal who has been very effective in follow-through, a friend, relative, or other support person who also know the student. Always ask if there is anyone else that would like to be, that the parent would like to invite to the meeting. Having people attend who have real knowledge of the student, who know the available services, who can explore the creative opportunity, and who know the data that provide information to the IEP team is an important component for an effective meeting environment. Given, and of course, given the new emphasis on accessing the grade level standard, it is really important for the general education teacher to be present. So what we have here in the next slide is a number of comments that participants made, and we want to share those with you. For example, the most help during the IEP was personnel there who could answer my questions. They knew the content of courses and could explain their significance in a big scheme of my child education. Another comment, it was so nice to have my child teacher there because she is the one person who I feel I can talk to. Another comment, there was no one that I could connect with. All the professionals took over. And we wanted to share these comments with you. The next slide addresses bringing people together. Under IDA, certain people are required to be at a meeting just to make sure the right people are there. A student can bring his or her own perspective to the meeting and may feel more empowered as to the decisions that are being made. In addition, if the student feels part of the team, the student may feel more connected to the IEP goal discussed. As mentioned before, it is important to have someone at the meeting, whenever possible, who has an existing positive relationship with the parent and or the student. Be conscious of any language needs or other special needs of the parent and the student. Use terms that are understandable. Also be aware of the special dynamics. If the student will be present, especially the importance of positive language and tone in the conversation. As you'll see in the next slide, a student can feel discouraged if there is a negative tone in the meeting. So for example, the next slide has, in front of my child, this is a comment by a parent, in front of my child, the IEP teacher said that my child is far behind academically and that her reading is at second grade level. Teacher said that she cannot teach my daughter new skills. My 16-year-old exploded into crying and refused to come back to the meeting. Or another comment from a parent during the IEP meeting, the teacher explained to my child in terms he understood the progress he has made and also talked to him about goals and objectives so that he'll know what he's going to be working on during the coming year. So these are just comments from parents, and we'll see throughout the presentation comments from teacher that we wanted to share with you. So the next slide talks about creating connection. So if a student or family is new to the district, reach out to them before the meeting. If the parent has never met any member of the IEP team, it is important to create a positive connection in person, by email, or by phone with the parent and the student prior to the meeting. At the meeting, make sure to talk directly to the student and ask the student questions. Student will feel left out if the conversation is about them and not with them. So here are some additional comments by participants. Things heated up pretty quickly and no one at the meeting was really prepared to deal with it. We need more expertise in how to deal with conflict itself. Parents, another comment, parents need to feel safe and heard. Sometimes when the power or aggressiveness of one parent is strong, it can be very uncomfortable. All professionals need some training in dealing with difficult conversation. Another comment, I have knowledge in special education. I do not have knowledge in dealing with highly emotional, difficult situations. That knowledge would have helped me. So these are comments that we hear a lot in terms of staff asking administration in different districts to support, to provide them with training. And I think, as you'll see as we proceed to our presentation, that our WSEMS has created a number of resources to help anyone who wants to get a better understanding how to deal with emotional, difficult situations. Jen?
Yep, so we've got a quickie poll for you to just see how comfortable are you with dealing with emotion? Very comfortable, comfortable, uncomfortable, or very uncomfortable? So if you could just cast your vote. Okay, and it looks like almost everybody has voted, and I'm going to, let's see, so 38% said very comfortable, 25% said comfortable, and 38% said uncomfortable. So definitely, you know, we're all over the board, but certainly, you know, it's something that not everybody is comfortable with. So when we talked about having a few folks on the team that are comfortable with conflict, that's always a good thing to have those people in place. So we'll go on to the next slide. And in order to feel safe and comfortable in an IEP meeting, having the skills and understanding sources of conflict, effective communication techniques, problem-solving techniques, and managing difficult conversations is really helpful. Understanding why someone is frustrated or angry, learning to actively listen without judgment and to speak in a way where your ideas can be heard, understanding how to productively brainstorm, and feeling comfortable when things get difficult. All of these things can help people focus on the student rather than getting lost in, you know, personal emotions, animosity, or distrust. Further training for parents and staff is always recommended in this area, as these skills have really practical purposes, not just for IEP meetings, but for many situations in our personal and professional lives. I wanted to point out that on the Wisconsin Special Ed Mediation System website, so I've got the link on this slide, we have many really great resources for things related to conflict, and we have a new video available that's called When Conflict Arises, and I think that it's a short video. I mean, all of our videos are like 10 minutes or less, and you know, you can get a lot of little nuggets out of that if you just pop in there and listen to it. The site also contains a lot of links to Cadre Resources, which is the National Center for Dispute Resolution and Special Ed, and they have a lot of also good resources related to dealing with conflict and dealing with emotion. So, you know, in understanding emotion, it's really important to be aware of any positive or negative relationships that already exist between the parent and the district, as well as any topics that seem to trigger high emotions by any member of the IEP team. By planning ahead and thinking about how to handle these difficult situations before they happen, if you know that they might happen, particular IEP team members who are highly effective at managing either difficult conversations or emotional hotspots can be ready, if needed, to bring the focus of the meeting back to the student. Spending time in an IEP meeting, you know, on anger and distress issues usually means that there's issues beyond the focus of an IEP meeting that could be better dealt with in a separate meeting, either such as an IEP facilitation or a mediation. Sometimes you can suspend the IEP meeting in order to have a mediation to deal with the issues. If you're in a time-sensitive situation and you have to complete the IEP, you could finish the IEP meeting and then schedule the mediation to deal with the communication and trust issues. So these are just some questions. We're not going to go over all of these, but here's some questions that relate back and help you kind of think through some of the things that we've talked about related to the focus area of people.
So we are looking at a second focus area, which is the process, preparation, and the meeting. So in the introduction, sometimes IEP team members can be so focused on the outcome that they forget or ignore some very basic guidelines that can lead to a more productive meeting and better outcome. Remember that the beginning of the meeting will impact the end, so care needs to be taken at every stage. Separating people from the problem means that the IEP team members should focus together on solving what is best for the student. It is not about us versus them or parent against the district. Bringing people together as a team is an essential component of the IEP team meeting. Setting the tone to the meeting from the very first moment is critical. Everyone should be treated with respect as an important member of the team, all of whom are dedicated to focusing on the student educational need in an open, creative, and non-judgmental way. Sometimes in a meeting, the center of attention can drift away from the student and focus instead on the relationship of the parent and the district and things that have happened in the past. It is essential that the team stay focused on the student needs and educational goals and what the team can do to provide for that particular student. Find out, and this is probably the most important element, find what is important and the goal behind the position or request. Let me repeat that. Really important to find out what is behind the position or request that folks make. Understanding why someone is expressing what they are expressing will give more insight into how to creatively solve the questions. So in the next slide, we have a survey that we conducted, and we have asked parents as well as administrators to respond. So as part of our WSEMS to district and parents, we have received valuable feedback as far as the participants at different IEP meetings. There were over 70 responses by parents who shared the following information. Over half of the parents stated they had been given at least a month's notice of the IEP meeting, which allowed them to come to the meeting more focused and prepared. 76% were asked for their suggestion as to the time of day and possible dates, which gave parents a sense of their importance as member of the IEP team. 65% were asked if there was anything special about their child academic or functional performance that they would like to discuss at a meeting. Jen, your slide.
Yep, so I'm going to do a quick poll again, and just all you have to do is, this is a multiple one, so you can click anything that applied that happened before the IEP meeting, whether you got notice, were able to suggest or pick from multiple times and dates, you were asked for academic and functional performance, or asked for agenda topics, or none of the above. I think everybody voted, so I'm going to close the poll and share it out. And it looks like 56% of you guys said you got a notice more than, or at least 4 weeks ahead. 67% said you were able to suggest or pick from multiple times or dates. 22% were asked for input on the child's academic functional performance. 22% asked for meeting agenda topics, and 11% said none of these. Okay. All right. Just, it's always interesting to see where everybody's at. Okay. So now we're going to go into some of the comments related to preparation. And we apologize for reading through these slides, but some people listen to this by phone or don't have their webinar program right in front of them, so we're going to read them. I appreciated that the district contacted me prior to the meeting and really stressed that I was an important part of the team. It really felt like they wanted my input. And another comment was, by far, the most helpful thing has been to meet with teachers and providers ahead of time so we're not bogged down with minutia and can focus on longer-term goals and broader perspective. And then the last one was I felt the district already had an entire IEP written in their heads before I got there. And a couple more comments. I always ask for a brief meeting and an IEP draft before the meeting to kind of pre-plan. Staff is usually this, but wouldn't if I didn't ask. Another comment, we did not receive timely information as to who would be at the meeting. The district brought a therapist that we did not know about. And then third comment is we received written notification that several staff that worked with our child were going to be present at the IEP meeting. In actuality, only the lead special ed teacher was present. This was misleading in our opinion. So comments are always interesting. And here's a few more. I was notified about the IEP meeting the day before. We have never finished an IEP meeting in the time allotted. It would be very helpful to have team meetings in advance of the actual IEP meeting to begin developing the present level and goals so that we are not always forced to have another meeting, which inevitably is not a good time for us. So as you can see by the last 3 slides of comments, there's a wide range of feedback from parents regarding preparation for the IEP meeting. Some parents believe districts come to the IEP meeting with completed IEPs. Some people said that they were invited to a preparation meeting before the actual IEP meeting. Some said they had no knowledge as to who would be at the meeting or what was going to be discussed. And others said the district contacted them in advance to stress the importance of their participation at the meeting. So what works best as far as establishing the trust and connection that leads to a productive meeting? Districts gave us many examples and techniques that have proven successful throughout the IEP process in establishing and maintaining a positive relationship with parents. First, be prepared. Consider sending parents a questionnaire about their child, asking for concerns, strengths, thoughts, or a student profile, and ask them if they have any questions or thoughts about the IEP meeting. This will help the district understand potential issues that could arise. One of your handouts is the positive student profile. That's the current form that we have. I know WSP's working on an updated version, so eventually there's going to be an updated version for that. But that's an example of what districts use and have shared with parents to get information in advance about a student. The case manager can contact the IEP team members to go over the agenda, the meeting location, date and time, and any needed accommodations. The IEP team meeting needs to be scheduled, obviously, at a convenient time for all members of the IEP team. So schedule the meeting in a time frame that is not close to the statutory deadline so that there could be a second meeting if everything couldn't be accomplished in one meeting. Sometimes when we're pushing up against that deadline, it really heightens the emotion. While most IEP meetings do complete an IEP meeting in one meeting, it is important that the statutory timelines for completing the IEP are not adding pressure to either the parent or the district personnel to come up with a document that is not the best it could be due to a hurried or a rushed situation. All IEP team members are an important part of this team, so stress to the parents their importance and the value of their knowledge and input about the students at the meeting. So if parents are unfamiliar with the IEP form itself, and as everybody knows, we are launching into new IEP forms for most districts, send them a copy of the form so they can see what it looks like. Offering to explain the form and the IEP process fully to parents before the meeting can really be very helpful, including explaining and walking them through the new I-7 forms in Wisconsin. And the post-secondary transition planning, the PTP online, if that's appropriate for the age of student. There's also some helpful DPI resources, including Intro to Special Ed in Plain Language, and some other publications and trainings that would be helpful for the district to share with families. Most school districts develop the agenda and the IEP during the IEP meeting. Some districts, in addition to sharing an agenda in advance, may also develop a draft IEP. And if developed, the draft should be shared with all IEP team members in advance. And it's so important to stress that this is only a draft and just a suggested starting place for discussion amongst all team members as to the goals and services for the students. To avoid the perception that the district has made up its mind as to the content of the IEP, tell all of the IEP team members that their input is absolutely essential to the development of the final IEP, and that any written documents, you know, the agenda or the draft IEP, are just drafts for discussion. It's important for the district and parents to provide IEP reports and any other critical documents before the meeting so that no one has to read a lengthy report on the spot, you know, during the meeting and try to pay attention to two things at once. If it's not possible to provide the reports before the meeting, then bring enough copies for all IEP team members to the meeting, and also be prepared to provide a summary of the report at the meeting. Parents are also encouraged to provide their information to the district. The goal should be to minimize surprises for all IEP team members whenever possible. If there's a lot of data or complicated or conflicting information, it may be useful to have a short informal meeting before the IEP meeting to go over the data and to go over recent test results. So ensuring that the right people are present, the district should notify the parents as to who will attend, and the parents similarly should notify the district as who will be attending with them as well. It's very disconcerting to be counting on the attendance of a particular person and then they don't show up. It's also equally surprising to come to a meeting and be faced with people that you didn't expect to be there. If an essential person of the team can't be there, the parents do have the option of rescheduling in order for the person who's currently unavailable to actually be there.
So thank you, Jen. So this slide has some feedback from that survey that we mentioned before that we sent to parents and educators. In this survey, parents indicated that only 21% had actually been met and welcomed outside the meeting room, and less than 6% were offered water. Some districts indicated that they provided beverages and light snacks, crackers, or candy. Some parents indicated that they had never met some of the district personnel until they were sitting across the table in the meeting. So,
do this really quick poll, and just let us know, what did you experience coming to, say, your last IEP meeting in your district, or that a parent attended, either one. It should be multiple choice, so hopefully you can check more than one. Okay, a couple more people have to vote. Okay. Anybody else? And I'm going to close the poll. So looks like 60% felt that they were welcome, 20% had water, and 100% said they were introduced to everybody.
thank you.
No snacks. No. I'm like big on snacks.
Yeah, so next one.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm too busy doing the poll, but okay, go ahead.
There we go. So it's really important to create a comfortable environment. Well, meetings, as we all know, can be scary or intimidating, especially if it is someone's first IEP meeting. So it's really important to have a comfortable waiting area for parents and arrange the meeting space in a welcoming way. The chairs should not be those little student chairs that cause people to have their knees up to their chin. Noisy area where you don't hear the person across the table. Provide easy access to restroom. Show the parent where these are prior to the meeting. Have water and, if possible, snacks in the room. Provides pens and papers and tissues. Create a sitting arrangement that is customized to the meeting. Many people prefer a more relaxed environment with large whiteboards or pads of paper that the team member can all see. You can put a draft IEP up on a smart board or a computer screen for immediate revision addition that all can see. And the concept of having everybody face the wall where you would have that information projected or on a sheet of paper is really important because it provides for a more serene environment where sometimes with some antagonism that has happened in the past, when people face each other, it can regenerate that animosity. But if everybody is looking in one direction to a document that is designed to provide a effective educational plan for the student, it minimizes the chances of conflict. So the next slide, first impressions. Someone from the district should welcome the parents in the office. Preferably, it should be someone that the parent already know and with whom they have a positive relationship. If the district representative does not know the parent, he or she should introduce himself and the role. This will usually immediately reduce anxiety and nervousness about the meeting. Once in the room, go around the table and have everyone reintroduce themselves and the role on the team. Try to create a personal as well as a professional connection. Have name cards that are easy to read instead of or in addition to name tags. In some cultures that are more formal, people prefer to be addressed as Mr. and Mrs. and so on. In others, people may prefer their first names. People should be addressed by their name, not their role. For example, Susan instead of the parent. Avoid use of acronym. For example, introduce yourself as Joe Smith, speech and language pathologist, not the SLP of the district. So in the next slide, we have some additional parent and district comments relating to the process. For example, the first one, the parent use the IEP meeting as an opportunity to vent about the district. We did not talk about the IEP itself until 2 hours into the meeting. Or another comment, I appreciate that the case manager kept the meeting focused on the goals. And higher level personnel who did not know my child seemed to be making the decision. The teacher, who was the most knowledgeable, did not seem to have much power. So looking at the beginning the meeting. Keeping the meeting focused on the student educational needs can sometimes be difficult if the relationship between the district and the parent is stressful. The case manager should summarize the goals at the beginning of the meeting and refer to the agenda. Case manager should refer to the agenda for time frame, indicating that there is a structure as well as flexibility in the process. State that most IEPs can be developed in one meeting. However, second meeting can be scheduled if necessary. If issues are raised that are not specific to the IEP and the IEP meeting, the case manager can keep track of those issues so they can be dealt with at another meeting. So then we continue with that on the next slide. Most people do not like to be told how to behave. On the other hand, guidelines that apply to all members of the IEP team can make a meeting more productive. Case manager can indicate that there are some guidelines that are routinely used in IEP meeting, state what those are, and ask if they are acceptable to everyone. Or the case manager can ask the team member to suggest guidelines themselves. Some popular guidelines are to listen without judgment and be respectful to all ideas, to talk one at a time, that everyone will have a chance to speak, that plain language will be used, and that technical language will be explained. Tell the team members that in order to focus on the student, all distractions should be kept to an absolute minimum, including the use of cell phone, which should be put on vibrate or silent. It can be very distracting to have people checking their watches or cell phone at a time. So having a clearly visible wall clock will allow everyone to pace themselves and follow the timelines in the agenda. And what we have the next slide is some additional comments about the meeting. It was nice that the district talked about my child's strength as well as his challenges. It made me feel that my child was a student, not a problem. And the other comment, our IEP meeting was a positive experience. We were in a half circle facing white pads on easel. The strengths of my son were listed in big, bright colors. True strength, not just what he enjoyed doing. This set the tone for the entire meeting. They saw him for who he was and not for the challenges he had. This also allowed the team to focus on how to best use these strengths to problem solve other areas of concern. The chair facing the board also felt to me that the entire team were focused on him, not on disagreement among the team. So, and again, going back to my personal bias, that seating arrangement is so critical to conduct productive and least problematic IEP meetings. So on the next slide, working together at a meeting, there is an example of possible exercise on the slide to do at a meeting that involved all members of the team working together to identify both strengths and challenges of the student. And as you can see on the slide, some exercise, put 2 sheets of flip chart paper with one sheet titled Strength, the other one Challenges. Starting with strength, ask each participant to identify 1 or 2 of the student's strengths as a learner, and then go around again and list challenges. Participants then review the list and indicate how the data informs them about the student. This should be a quick introductory activity to focus on the student and show balance between strength and challenges. And the next slide involves additional quotes. The district had so many people there that I felt I had very little time to talk. They were nice to me, but I felt though I hardly got to say anything. And another comment, we appreciated it when we were asked to speak early in the IEP meeting about our concerns and new goals without having to demand to do so. Jen, yours next.
Sure. So we're going to talk a little bit about communication at the meeting. And the beginning of the meeting should be the time to ask open-ended and exploratory questions, finding out the interest, issues, and particular goals for the meeting. Things like all members should have the chance to talk uninterrupted. However, it's a good time, obviously good to keep the time balanced and focused on the students. Keep track of the points, the options, the agreements and disagreements, as well as a page that deals with non-IEP issues that are still important. The term parking lot is used to describe the process of listing issues that are either to be discussed at another meeting or in mediation, usually broader than the goals of the particular IEP meeting. And so here's a couple of more comments. The issues in the IEP meeting were more appropriate for mediation. The issues were broader and came from the bad relationship between the district and the parent. Another comment, trust could only be developed through a neutral third party. Glad we decided to go to mediation. Sometimes IEPs Meetings can lose their focus and start to stray into areas that are broader than the IEP meeting. And rather than having the meeting fall apart or have people be frustrated or angry, it's better to acknowledge that another type of meeting might be the place to handle those additional issues or problems. Sometimes an IEP facilitator from the Wisconsin Special Ed Mediation System can come in and help the meeting stay focused, and other times the mediation is the more appropriate forum to discuss some of these bigger issues. WSEMS provides neutral trained facilitators to help in IEP meetings, as many of you know. A facilitated IEP meeting is a free option for early conflict prevention that's not required by IDEA to be available, but we do have it available in Wisconsin. While the case manager is still responsible for the IEP content, the IEP facilitator is there to help. The facilitator isn't an IEP team member. When there's a difficult relationship between the district and a parent or members of the IEP team don't listen well to each other, a WSEMS facilitator can assist in keeping the meeting focused on the student, establishing a more workable framework to talk about IEP goals, to help brainstorm options and move the process forward to completion of the IEP. And just to let you know that one of your handouts is the WSEMS brochure that explains IEP facilitation. And also another handout that you have is the facilitated IEP request form, should you need it. Those forms are also available on the WSEMS website. When parties reach impasse or the bigger issues threaten to derail the IEP, mediation may be appropriate. WSEMS provides trained mediators who can help address those broader issues, the sources of resistance, issues of trust and lack of communication. So again, this service is free to parents and schools in Wisconsin. The mediation session is separate from the IEP meeting, and while either the parent or the district can request mediation through WSEMS, both parties need to agree in order for mediation to go forward. There isn't any such thing as a mediated IEP that we've heard people refer to it as, but there is an IEP facilitation and there is mediation. Each follows their own process and their own goals. An IEP facilitation is focused on developing the IEP, and mediation is focused on resolving a specific dispute or multiple disputes. So one of the handouts that you have, or that's available on the WSEMS website, is our manual that's about effective participation in the special ed mediation process. And then also one of the handouts that's available today is the request for mediation form. Here's a visual picture of the intake process of WSEMS. And as you can see, a request for information is received, upper left-hand corner, and the case is screened and analyzed by the intake coordinator with the potential users to help determine what process would be appropriate, whether it be facilitated IEP or mediation. The intake coordinator helps people understand the different choices, provides feedback to the parents in the district about how each option might meet their needs, and the choice of which process and mediator or facilitator to use is up to the parents and the school district. We also have on our WSEMS website a short video that's called Effective Participation in Mediation and IEP Facilitation, so that helps you further understand those processes and how to participate. So here's just some more questions and thoughts that certainly give you things to think about related to the section that we've just covered. So now we're going to go on, and our third focus area is the outcome.
Thank you, Jan. So the introduction to the outcome. The primary goal of the IEP meeting is to complete an understandable and workable IEP. IEP should have specific and measurable annual goals with clear language that is understandable to all IEP team members, as well as to anyone who may be responsible for implementing the IEP who is not at the meeting. So describe or summarize how parents assisted in developing the IEP goals. If the parents have concerns, it is important to note them on that IEP form that allows for that feedback from parents. If parents disagree with the IEP, it is still the district responsibility to complete the IEP, but it might be helpful for parents if the district took time to provide additional information about services and support that are being suggested. As we see in the next slide, in terms of some of the comments about the outcome, it is 2 weeks since the meeting and the IEP is still in draft form. We have not heard from the district since the meeting. Not sure if they are going to follow through, or I did not get a rough copy of what was discussed, so I could compare it with a final copy. I did not get a follow-up call email to go over the IEP to make sure I understood. So if the IEP, and the next slide, if the IEP is not completed, if the IEP was not completed at the meeting, the case manager should review what was completed so far by the team and schedule the next IEP team meeting within the statutory timeline. Check in with all team members about any unfinished agenda item, follow up that might be helpful before the next meeting. If copies of the reports have not been provided prior to the meeting, the case manager confirms how copies of the report will be provided after the meeting in a specific time frame where everyone will receive their copies. Now, on the other hand, if the IEP has been completed, a key part of the IEP when it is developed is to establish a concrete and specific communication plan. What type of communication works best in this specific situation? Do the parents have easy access to a computer in order to receive email? If not, or it is only available in the work site, phone calls are usually preferable. Discuss how frequently there will be communication between the parents and the district. Some goals may need more frequent follow-up. As you can see by the parents' comments in the preceding slides, some parents receive minimal follow-up after the IEP meeting. Remember that a positive relationship with all team members is important, and that having regular and consistent communication is key ingredient in building and maintaining that relationship. Jen?
Okay. So if an IEP has been developed, easy to understand language and make sure to use objective criteria in measuring progress. How are you going to measure each goal? Who will measure the goals? When will you measure the goals? And if possible, give the parent a copy of the IEP at the meeting. If it isn't ready, give a very specific date on which they will receive it and how. What's the method that they're going to get it? For example, it will be mailed by the district to the parent on November 13th. In the meeting, provide for dates and timelines for review of the goals and coordinate it with the communication plan that Nissan just mentioned on the previous slide. And here's some examples of what to consider when writing the IEP. Make sure that the IEP language is clear and specific. For example, when including positive behavior supports in the IEP, describe how the supports will be implemented in the classroom, or when describing school services such as speech and language or special ed reading instruction, be clear on the amount, frequency, and location of these services. If these services can't be described in daily or weekly allotment of time, make sure to describe the circumstances under which these services will be provided. And the DPI Bulletin 10.07 is a good reference for this that describes, provides tips on describing special ed related services and all the rest of the things that go on in this area. Also make sure to consider IEP participants' underlying interests. For example, in discussing the need for a one-to-one paraprofessional, consider such interests as the student's independence and safety. Another example would be in transportation issues, consider such interests as the student's safety issues and the district's required versus permissible services. Make sure to consider both long-term and short-term needs. For example, in discussing potential graduation, consider the student's academic credits and transition skills. Will another school year provide the student with additional employability skills necessary for competing in the jobs market? It's often helpful for parents and teachers to work together on fun learning activities that parents can do at home with their child. The teacher can show and provide to the parent easy and fun activities and games that are geared to the child's specific IEP goals and learning styles. This can build a strong parent-teacher team approach to helping the child do their best and also creates a positive parent-teacher relationship. Recent research conducted by the Harvard Graduate School of Education shows that school districts, for example, using Karen Mapp's family engagement framework, linking families to student learning, it increases students' reading and math achievement between 10 and 20 percentage points. Here we just picked one, and for example, directions for letter sound bingo. Give the child the bingo card. The parent calls a letter sound for the child to find on a card. The child finds a letter that matches the sound, and then we'll use coin or bean or paper scrap to cover up the letter on the bingo card. But just things that you can put on the IEP that are activities that can be done at home.
Jen, can I just mention a comment that the best place to put that information is in the new IEP form, the linking form, that has a segment that asks the IEP team members to note how are they engaging parents in student education or in student learning. So this is where the beginning of good engagement between parents and teacher can take place.
Yeah, that's absolutely. That's a perfect place to put that. People are wondering what to put in that area, and some of these strategies are really good for that. Also consider students' self-advocacy skills versus the district commitment of resources. And for example, when describing IEP services, well, you can read the rest of it, supplementary aids and services, like a calculator use shouldn't not be up to the student's request to use. The calculator should be available for the student's use for all activities that necessitate the use of a calculator. And on the other hand, an annual goal may be developed that the student should be encouraged to ask for the calculator in order to address the student's self-advocacy skills. Again, we've got some questions for you to ponder on and related to this section. So our fourth and final focus area is follow-through.
Thank you. So given the time, we're going to move quickly through that. The team members have hopefully built trust in the process. There is a sense of commitment and completion when the IEP is finished. All of that can be destroyed if there is limited follow-through. In addition to destroying the trust and rapport, the district has a legal obligation to implement the terms of the IEP. If the goal turns out to be unrealistic, communication with the IEP team is essential. IEP team may decide to revise the IEP goals. Keep a positive contact throughout the year. A yearly meeting is not enough to sustain a good relationship. As you can see from the next slide, some comments from parents. Do what the team has agreed to and what is in the IEP. If you can't, then let me know. It becomes very difficult to trust the people and trust it with my child learning when the IEP is not followed. Or another comment, there was no follow-up from school staff after the meeting. Each year I have to request a copy of the IEP. I ask for a progress report on IEP goals and told the IEP satisfies that progress report. My child report card does not list progress notes on any IEP goals. I received one email, no text, just an attachment with a complete negative overview from the case manager and did not address specific goals. These are the kind of comments that school staff needs to see and really grasp the importance of maintaining good contact. The next slide deals with communication. Sometimes IEPs are not sent to the parent in a time frame that was promised at the IEP meeting. The district should contact the parent and explain the reason for the delay. Do not assume that the parents will simply understand that something has come up or that there must be some reasonable reason for the delay. Let them know when to expect the IEP. About a week after the IEP is sent to the parent, the case manager should call and see if the parents have any questions and talk about the communication plan for the future, reminding them about that portion of the IEP. And I believe the next one are the question that we usually pose when we have this presentation in person with an audience. So we'll skip that and move on to the conclusion. And we hope that this presentation has helped provide a solid base for developing more productive and friendlier IEP meeting. We know that suggestion may involve more work and may also involve spending more time in the preparation. However, thoughtful planning, solid communication, and positive contact will ultimately save time. When district and parents have good relationship, everything runs more smoothly with less conflict. Many of the parent-school relationship will last for years. Remember in the one slide that we said, the beginning impacts the ending. The beginning and planning stages of a relationship and the very first IEP meeting will set the stage for years to come. So investing time and energy in making a productive IEP benefits everyone. Okay, Jen?
So just thinking back on some of the things that we talked about, just make yourself a note to say things that you might stop doing as a result of the presentation, things that you're going to continue to do because you figured out that they worked and we said, yeah, they're good. And then also some green light things of if you picked up any tips to start doing from this presentation. If you want to type a couple of those things into the chat box of things that you're going to start doing, that would be awesome. And then the last slide is just some resources that are available. We've talked about the mediation system website and DPI documents, and then also cadre information for you. And then finally, this will be the SurveyMonkey evaluation that you can either fill it out right now or it's going to be sent to you. So either one, and I'm just looking to see if anybody stuck any comments in the chat, and I don't see any of new things that you picked up that you might do. So you're certainly welcome to type those into the chat box. And that said, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully you'll pick up a couple of tips that you might start implementing right away. So have a great rest of the day.